So if you think Hollywood has a tendency of farting out rush sequels nowadays, you ain't seen nothing yet. With the massive success of King Kong, RKO Studios decided to cash in hard on it, and The Son of Kong was born, released the same year, just 9 months after the original. Think about that for a sec. Son of Kong and its entire planning, writing, filming, editing, and marketing process, I don't know how kind of marketing was happening in 1933, but I mean, it was all done in 9 months. And God, does it ever show? It should be of no surprise to anybody that this movie fails hard in comparison to its original. The fact that it didn't completely fail, given how rushed it was, is a miracle in of itself. The gang is all back. We got Robert Armstrong returning as Carl Denham, Frank REICHER back as Captain Englehorn, and who could forget everyone's favorite, Chinese cook. Yeah, I mean, it was the 30s. We'll get into some of the, shall I say, poorly aged references later on. After the disastrous attack, to put it lightly, on the city in the original, Carl Denham is now known as the asshole who brought a giant ape into New York and got a bunch of people killed. Facing potential criminal charges, him and Englehorn hop aboard a ship to just go out into the ocean and do some cargo jobs, because back then they couldn't track you, so this was just a way you could avoid the law. Along their journey, they stumble upon the saddest circus I've ever seen.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out.
Here we meet our Fay Ray 2.0, Hilda, in the form of the beautiful Helen Mack, and a piece of shit named Nils Hellstrom, who just so happened to be the dude that sold Carl the map to Skull Island in the first movie, and he ends up accidentally killing Hilda's father in a drunken stupor.
Tony, come down. Tony. Tony, please come down. Tony. Tony. Tony.
You'll never catch a monkey that way.
Exactly. The correct way to catch these monkeys is to hit them in the face with giant oversized gas bombs like you did with Kong, because that would be hilarious. Carl reminds me of that friend who's there to like coddle your girlfriend when you guys have a fight, but really just wants to bend her over a couch and give her the old 1-2, if you know what I mean. He's like, I'm here for you, don't worry. But in his head, all you hear is, aww. Because greed knows no bounds, Carl, Englehorn, Chinese cook, and the asshole Nils decide to head back to Skull Island so they can claim a treasure. Because why not? I mean, you already abducted their king and got him killed. You might as well steal their shit too. One of the more interesting things about both this and King Kong, really any movie from this era, is seeing what is considered the cultural norm back then. I mean, they credited the only Chinese actor in the movie as nothing more than Chinese cook. They had that circus of sad monkeys, which you just know PETA would have been just frothing over. And when Hilda sneaks her way onto the ship, Carl says this to her.
Beaten to a pulp.
You say that to a woman nowadays and you're basically going to jail, but back then, it was foreplay. The biggest issue I have with this movie is that it takes 42 minutes exactly for the titular Son of Kong to actually show up. And this movie's only 70 minutes long, so it's basically 40 minutes of just the most boring build-up, and finally stuff happens, but unlike the original King Kong, there's no epic payoff here. Sure, the stop motion is still charming to look at in a way, but you can definitely tell this was rushed. It looks way more janky than it did in the last movie, and it was still done by Willis O'Brien, so you know he was capable of better. Though, I can hardly blame the guy. Not only was he rushed, but apparently during the production of this movie, his wife murdered both his sons and tried to take her own life as well. If you look past the jank, some of the monster effects in these scenes are pretty entertaining. In particular, there's a fight between Baby Kong and a giant bear that's kind of cool. I mean, I love when Kong gets the thing in a headlock and just starts like sucker punching him in the face, but it goes on way too long. Though, later on, Baby Kong battles a Nothosaurus in a cave, which is a far better fight, I think, personally, because it's kind of reminiscent of the T-Rex fight in the original movie. The only other monster that's even really worth mentioning is a sea serpent that kills Nils, and that's only because it's funny as hell. Anytime we get a monster throwing around a ragdoll, it's always a good time in my book. Also, Kong is just stupid. Like, he might as well be wearing a dunce cap. And yeah, he's a baby, but babies are dumb, so my point still stands. The ending results in Carl and Kong both stranded on a rock out in the ocean that's slowly sinking. Kong sacrifices himself to save Carl, which not only makes Carl an even bigger dick because he got both the father and the son killed, but it also just reminded me of, well... Son of Kong cost around $270,000 to make and ended up making triple that when it was released, which again is shocking considering it was such a rush job. Is it a great movie? God, no. King Kong is one of the most influential movies ever made, and the creators of this movie knew this. They knew they couldn't compete, so they ended up making a much shorter, far more comedic in tone movie that is just okay at best. There's nothing special about it. It just kind of exists. It's like sugar-free King Kong and you're on a diet. It looks basically the same, but with just enough of a lack of fun to remind you that this is your hell.
Play the movie. I want you to smile. Show